Hello everyone, my name is Ayad Boudiab. I'm a senior application developer and technical trainer. In this course, we're going to explore AngularJS. We'll talk about all the details of AngularJS and we illustrate that through examples. So every time we have a new idea, we put it through an example and see how it works. My plan is to cover all the details of AngularJS so you feel comfortable creating small and medium-sized applications. Of course, large type applications, that's something beyond this course, but you will be feeling really comfortable working with AngularJS. As you can see on the screen, AngularJS is created by Google. And if I try to look it up using Wikipedia, I will see the following information. AngularJS is an open source JavaScript framework maintained by Google that assists with running single page applications, where there are multiple important ideas in this case. We're creating single page applications, or what they refer to as SPA, right? And in this case, there's a lot of advantages and there's a lot of challenges because you're just presenting different views from the same page depending on what the user is doing on the page, which helps a lot because you're only working with a single page and you don't have a lot of those post-back that you used to have with other type of technologies. But at the same time, it presents some challenges because basically, how can I browse back, right? If I'm on the same page and I'm seeing different views as if I'm saying different pages, then what's going to happen if I browse through those pages and the backward and the forward button on the browser, right? This is important to me, and what's going to happen to the URL. So this is important to handle as a different concept within Angular that probably we did not use to worry about in other technologies. And it's a JavaScript framework. That's an important point in there as well, because it didn't say JavaScript library, so it's not handling one special case, say of data binding like we used to do in Knockout. In this case, it's a framework, so it provides me with a lot of functionality that I need, right? So we need to explore that framework. We need to see what kind of functionality it presents to us and how we can take advantage of that functionality to create applications. And for that, we can create really complex applications all on the client side, which of course would help us a lot with performance. Then it says its goal is to augment web-based applications with Model View Controller. So we are working with MVC. MVC is a design pattern, right? And as the name implies, model, view, and controller represents the actual model, which is the data. Okay, so the data could be something coming from the database in a JSON format, and I need to use that data to present it to the user somehow. In other technologies, we used to have all this kind of squished together, right? We have the data, we have the operations on the data, the presentation. It's hard to separate those pieces and to create better applications. In this case, it's much easier because we have the model, which is separate from the view, which is separate from the controller. Again, the model represents your data, and then the view, of course, is what you see on the screen. So in this case, let's say HTML. And then the controller that receives the requests from the user and work on it. If I look up Model View Controller, it takes me here to the page that displays for me what every one of them represent. As I discussed with you, the controller basically that receives the commands, and as you can see here, the user interacts with the controller. The controller would somehow manipulates the model. Since the view is binding to some data from the model, the view will also be updated. And of course, that's what the user sees, is the view on the screen. So then Model View Controller is a matter of separating the concerns, right? We have a separate controller to interact with the user. We have a separate model sitting somewhere that contains the data. And then we have the view that actually displays that data on the screen. So if I need to test my application, it's very easy to do so. Why? Because of the separation of concerns, and we have the separate pieces working together to give you the application, but these pieces are not mingled together, which means that the testing would be much easier. I can create say a unit test that calls a function within the controller to do its work. All what I need is to call that function and see what kind of data it's giving me back. I don't have to worry about the model in its details. I don't have to worry about the view in its details and what kind of view I'm going to be seeing and whether that's going to be affected. All what I care about is that there's a function in the controller. I need to call that function to be able to do its work. So then, using MVC design pattern, my testing of the application is way easier. And that's what's adopted by AngularJS. It uses the model view controller design pattern, but of course it uses that on the client side, because since we're dealing with JavaScript, that's all what we're writing, right? Okay, so then we are just taking a quick overview of what Angular is and how I can use it. And as we go through the course, we will be exploring more and more details about Angular. You know, there's so much to learn about it. We will take every one of those concepts by example and then trying to illustrate how that works so we can get more familiar with it. And as you learn more about those concepts and you feel like you're scratching the surface and there's a lot more to learn about it, so you will see there's a lot to discover and a lot of examples to illustrate in this course. Okay, so now this is where we said we have Angular. Angular uses MVC design pattern. We discussed that. Now let's go back and see what else we need to do. Now in my examples, what tools would I be using, right? So the first thing is I'm trying to view some type of HTML. It contains, of course, JavaScript and others. So I'm using web browser. Okay. Now, almost always I'll be showing you the example using Google Chrome. Okay, and you might see some examples with Firefox, but mostly I'll be using Google Chrome to illustrate our examples. So this is the view. Then where would I be writing my code? Well, in your case, and this is very challenging in deciding what to use, because every user has a different development environment that they are comfortable with. Okay, so a lot of cases you could be a Microsoft developer, and you're using to a lot of you are used to a lot of Windows type of applications, and you'll be using Visual Studio. You're creating your examples on Visual Studio, and Visual Studio will provide you a lot of functionality to basically do everything in there. You know, just write the code, preview the code, get some packages, downloads, and so on. You can do all that in one place. But other developers are not comfortable with Visual Studio, right? They come from different background and they don't use that. Well, you can go and write everything in Notepad, right? You can write everything even in Notepad++ or in other development environments. It's up to you which one you want to use. But in my case, I'll be using Sublime Text. Okay, Sublime Text. If you want to get that, you just simply go to Google and just say download Sublime Text. Now, as far as when I'm creating this videos, we have Sublime Text 3. That's the one that we can refer to, and here that's the first link on the top. And you can download one for Windows, one for OS X, one for Ubuntu 64 or 32. So it's up to you. The reason I chose Sublime Text is that you can have it downloaded based on your operating system, right? In my case, I'm using Windows, so I downloaded the Windows 64-bit version of Sublime Text, and I installed that on my machine. Okay, the installation is very straightforward. We can, as you can see in here, you get the exe, you save it, you run it, and you get the Sublime Text. Okay, again, don't be alarmed by using Sublime Text. Oh, this is a new tool, how can I learn it? We'll explore it as we go through the course and we see what type of functionality it provides us. But at the end, it's a development environment. It's a place where I can write my code and then do something with it, right? I prefer, since you're working with Angular, Angular is involved. There's a lot of scripts, a lot of HTML and functionality that we need to use. I prefer if you stay from the basic development environment. For example, Notepad. You don't want to write everything in Notepad and then have some typos and your page would not work and go figure out what's going on. A lot of development environment will provide you an easy way of working with your text, with your HTML. So I preferred, let's say, Notepad++ and above, right? Again, any development environment you're comfortable with would be fine. But my choice was Sublime Text, and we'll explore how Sublime Text would work in all the videos that we're working with. Okay, so now that I have downloaded Sublime Text. That's my development environment. That's where I'll be writing my code, and then I'll have to go back to Angular and say, okay, well, I'm working with Angular, right? I need to have Angular on my machine, right? And this is the core of our course, our videos, everything that we're working with. So what are the options here? I can get it from GitHub, right? Or but in my case, I'm going to download it, right? So I download AngularJS and gives me those options. It says the branch, the build, and CDN. Well, in my case, the CDN is a content delivery network. I should be able to reference Angular using this angular.min.js from ajax.google APIs, right? And I can put this reference on my page and I'm ready to go. I don't have to download anything. It's referencing AngularJS from a content delivery network, which means simply we have thousands of Google servers all over the world. So basically, it's the download of this is faster, and it helps us with caching. It has a lot of benefits, and if you hover over this question mark that you see here, it gives you the details of it. Better caching, decreased latency, increased parallelism. You can experiment with those details and read about them, and so you can understand what's the why you want to use a content delivery network. So, but in other cases, I need to use a specific branch and download that into my machine, and that's pretty much what I end up doing, is basically downloading Angular on my machine. But I have the stable and the unstable. Of course, the stable one contains all the latest features that they are working with, all the latest features that have already been tested. They are out there. Everybody is using them. This is the stable version of AngularJS. The unstable one are the ones that they are still experimenting with. There could be a few bugs here and there, but again, you're working with the latest features that they are right now being implemented with the Angular team. So it's up to you which one you work with. But in my case, I got the stable version because I need to work with the tested functionality, so we don't have to run into bugs and problems. So we selected the stable one. Now, what type of build you want? The minified, the uncompressed, or the zip? When we talk about the minified one, it is the actual file that has a smaller size. Why does it have a smaller size? Because the spaces are all stripped out from the file and the variable declarations are manipulated to make this file as small as possible. Well, of course, if you are working with a production version of Angular, that's something that you need to put on your production server and have all this available to the user out there to use in your production application, you will be using the minified version. Because again, the minified version is smaller in size, therefore faster download, and that's what you want on your production servers. The uncompressed version is the one that's just the regular version, no minification, no space stripping, nothing, just the actual file that you're working with. And this is of course bigger in size, but it's better if I want to debug my code. right? As I'm stepping through the functionality in Angular or my code and then stepping into the Angular functionality, I would see the full function in detail. I don't see just stripped out versions and then no spaces and so on. So in this case, then the uncompressed version is the version that I use during development. That's the one that helps me develop my code, step through my code, test my code, and test, of course, the functionality available within Angular. That's the one that you want if you are currently developing your application. Okay, so you choose which one you want, and then you say I want to download it. Right, you download that into your machine, and that's what I get to my folder. And if I go over here and I see that I have a script reference, right? It says the actual AngularJS, and here is a script in the scripts folder, angular.js. That's all what I need. And of course, you can see that I put it in the scripts folder. That's my choice, right? This is where I place it. It doesn't go automatically there. It's downloaded to your machine. You take the AngularJS and you reference that in your files. You can put it in a script folder or anywhere else you want. But what's important is that you're referencing the correct AngularJS file that you need. Okay, so then this is the actual overview of what we need. So let's just wrap it up in a few seconds. We have this course is about AngularJS. We will be learning all the details of AngularJS so we can create small and large type of applications. We know where to go to download Angular. Angular is created by Google, right? We can go to angularjs.org and be able to download Angular from there. We have different variations of how to download Angular. It's up to you which one you're working with, whether it's your production or development version of Angular. And then the other thing is Angular is depending on the MVC design pattern, model view controller, where we have a separation of concerns between the actual model that contains the data, the view that displays the data, and the controller that receives the user's request to provide something to the view eventually. And then we also talked about two things. We are previewing our code in Google Chrome and probably in a few cases in Firefox, and also we'll be using Sublime Text to be able to write our code and be able to preview that on the screen. Okay, so this is all the details that we need. Let's go ahead and get started and start working with examples in AngularJS. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Ayad Boudiab, and you take